Okay, so this is going to be the first of our loose ends topics, and this will be dealing with the date time data type. And this is actually kind of a fun data type to work with. And we also have the date time picker that we have not dealt with before, so that's another control that you have at your disposal. So here I have some radio buttons. Well, first, today is April 14th, 2020, and that happens to be the date. And if I were to run this tomorrow, it would say April 15th. So I have this rigged so that it's going to just load the current date based on the system clock. And I'll show you how to do that. But then I can choose a date. Well, today is today. Tomorrow, it'll change to the 15th. Yesterday, it'll change to the 13th. And then I can choose from the date time picker, whatever, maybe Saturday. Okay, and that'll load. So I'll show you the code behind that, and then we'll deal with this bottom part here. But basically, when I load the form, well, let me go up here. At the class level, notice I'm not inside of an event. I'm not inside of a curly brace sandwich, except for the class, the class sandwich itself. But this is a class level variable. Look at the data type, date time type. And I'm calling it the date. That's the name that I came up with, but that's a date time type. So when the form loads, I'm going to, by default, set the date to date time dot today. Let me just put in the dot operator here and see what comes up in the IntelliSense. Quite a lot, actually. Look at this. Is leap year now? I'm just looking at some of this days in month. I guess that would be the return the current days in the current month, the number of days. Today, well, maybe not as much as I thought would be in here, but you'll see. There's a lot more behind this object. Okay, so once the time is set to today, I'm going to load that into the label up at the top. Now, I like the long date string. Let me run that again so we can look at the long date string. There's the long date string. You get the day of the week and then the month all spelled out. I think this is kind of a more elegant way of displaying a date as opposed to a short date string. Let's see if we can do a short date string. Okay, and I mean there are other variations on that too. Yeah, there it is, the short date string. So you'll probably agree that the long date string looks a little bit better. Okay, so let's go back to the long date string. And then looking at these radio buttons, I know we've worked with radio buttons a little bit, but okay, so let's say the radio button for today is clicked, okay, or checked, active. The date equals date time today, all right? And then we display it in the label. What if they check tomorrow? What if they click tomorrow? The date equals, see, there is no tomorrow. We have to say dot today, and then we turn around in the next line and use this method add days. The date dot add days, and then I add one day, and that turns today into tomorrow. And then I update the label. Now, what about the yesterday radio button? You can imagine, oh, there's no subtract days, but there is add days, and I can add a negative number to get to yesterday. So again, you have to go to today and then add or subtract if you want to go forward or backward in time, okay, using the add days method. Okay, so let's look at the bottom half of this. This is where things get kind of fun. Okay, so let's say I want to figure out how much time I have left to complete exam 3 in this class. And this semester, our exam 3, let's see, is going to be due, I believe, on this date. Okay, May 12th. That's just this semester. So time left in days, 28 days from now. You're going to have to turn in that exam 3. You have 672 hours to get that together. You have over 40,000 minutes and over 2 million seconds. All right, so let's look at the code behind this. Notice that as soon as let's say the exam was due that Friday, for example. As soon as I make a selection in the date time picker, the data changes. Okay, so I have an event coded for this date time picker, and we'll look at that event. So you know what, before we look at the event, let me just say the date time picker is just one of the tools in the toolbox. So you can just plop one of those on your form whenever you need it. Okay, and it's pretty easy to use. But okay, so I'm going to double click this guy. And look at the default event is the value changed. So as soon as the user makes a selection, that is when this event is going to fire. So one thing I did do is if they selected a due date for the project that is less than right now, meaning a due date that was in the past, then we're going to do a message box that says the deadline has passed. Okay. Or else we're going to do the countdown. Okay, so we've got two objects in play here. One of them is the due date. So I'm going to, again, create a date time type, just like we did in the beginning, and I'm going to call it due date. So it says date and time in the future when the project is due. And we're going to set that to the value that they said was due by picking it in the date time picker. And then what I'm going to do is create a second object called a time span. And this is a stretch of time between now and the due date. So you see the distinction here? A date time object is a point in time. A time span object is a stretch of time, okay, an amount of time as opposed to a single point in time. So anyway, I'm calling this time left, and it's going to be the due date minus right now, okay? The due date, that future date, minus how much time we're at right now is going to give me that time in between, that time span in between. Okay, so the time span, you know what? We do have a subtract method. I thought we did not have a subtract method here. We were talking about the add days. I guess you do have a subtract option there. Okay, so anyway, we have the time span, and now from here we're home free. All we have to do is do our time left, and then I'll just pull down the dot operator so you can see all the options that you have. You have total days, total hours, total. You can get right down to the milliseconds if you want to, total minutes. And yeah, so total days left. And then I'm doing a little format pattern. We might have done this earlier in the semester. If you use ToString, you can provide this format pattern, especially if you're dealing with the thousands and you want to format that. That's always an option that you have. So total days, total hours, total minutes, total seconds, and we're just counting down to that due date. So again, really three new objects here. You had the date time picker, which is control that you can use, pretty easy to work with, and the date time object, which is a point in time, and then the time span object, which is a stretch of time.